let's double click on the work order quote.
You let me drive, you bet, not it.
Okay.
Okay.
And do me a favor, go to the bottom. Let's put work orders up there just for a second so you can kind of embrace this concept. So work orders, basically, if we were to kind of put one of these up side to side, you've got your header, and then you've got your work order down here at the bottom. So when we go into the quote, you'll be like, hey, I got some kind of header, and I got some kind of line item scope sequence detail underneath that. So open that middle one. So really what you're doing is you're prepping this quote so that in step 2, when you create the work order, it will very efficiently turn from a quote into a work order. So you'll see a lot of similarities in the quote than in the work order that we're messing around. Because it's really, I'm quoting, if they give it to me, I want to build a create a work order. If not, I still got the information of this quote sitting in the system. I just, for whatever reason, they went with somebody else. And I never did get the job.
Half of that is that they just haven't done it. So in the past, we actually created something where the outstanding quotes for that site showed up on the bottom of the work order for the guys going out on maintenance, and so they re-talked to them about the outstanding quotes.
Gotcha. Okay, sounds good. So up at the top, it's usually your quotes are just some sort of sequential numbering service. Currently, are your work orders just sequential numbers?
They are not.
There's logic
There's a
built
logic
into
behind
the thing.
Mhm.
But it's system driven, not, it's by date and month and all that. It's automatic sequential in the system. So it's not something we designed for that.
But it's got logic built in it. It's just not a numeric sequential thing. Whereas in here, like I said, there is no method. There's other date fields and things you can, put next to it as far as
Our current quote system does not have logic to the numbering.
it's just a unique sequential number. So that's what this is going to be doing. Okay. So just put in plus there, and it'll enter. It'll create the next quote. This is number 1 in here. Okay. So description. Just think of this as the overall description, which will become the overall description of the work order. So this would be describing in the short term what this quote is for. Enter. Enter. So no work order at this point in time. Now hit F4 and do a lookup. So I'm looking up the SM customers. So let's talk about how your current quote system works. If this is a current customer, then you could do a quote for a current customer because I can pick them off the list here.
But you have to know the customer name. You can't know the site name.
Well, at this stage of the game, it's just asking me customer right now. Does that make sense?
It does. I understand what you're saying. Can we fix that?
So cancel that here for just a second. So in the header here, I'm going to get to the service site over here, but I have to grab the customer first. So then it looks to a subset of that customer and says, which of those service sites would you like to do the quote for?
So is there any way to
Switch that?
switch that?
Mm-mm. No, I got to grab the customer,
Okay.
and then I grab the service site.
So my example for you is that Cielo is the site, and everybody just calls it Cielo. And when I tried to look it up before, I tried to look it up as Cielo but that's not really, the customer is
Some LLC.
First Hill something, and the site is Cielo. So I don't know my customer.
You don't
half
really
the
know
time.
the customers.
Do the look.
So what we do currently, because that's the same as what we have right now. So I was hoping to get something better.
Yeah.
Right? So what we have to do currently is we have to go to a different screen, find out the customer based on looking it up in the site, get that, and then come back over and look it up and get it.
Yeah, so hit F4 here. So here's the problem with that. This is indeed the customer list and not the service site list, which is going to come up here in a second. But as you stated and just explained to me very succinctly, that you don't have all the customers memorized, but you got a pretty good grasp of the service sites, which are really part 2 in the selection process, not part 1.
So it's the same problem I have now, so we'll just work around it the same way we do.
Yeah, you could have that other thing sitting up right here. So let's go ahead just for the sake of this one. So do we even remember what was that first what?
Yeah, I wrote it down. The First Western.
That was my service site. Was that also my customer? Gotcha. So First Western Properties. So that's pulling, so hit F4. Now you can, of course, it knows and it's giving you a subset because it's like, you found that for me, now it's helping you out, but it certainly wasn't helping you out in step 1.
Right,
It wanted to know which customer, then this would be a choice of service site specific to that customer.
right.
So what do you do when you're quoting a new customer?
So currently, we bake it by going into the customer that's set up for Auburn Mechanical, and we quote it to Auburn Mechanical.
Mhm.
And then by the time we release it, that customer will already be a customer. And then we can change the customer ID on the quote before we release it.
It's kind of what you got to do in Vista too. If you don't want to use Auburn Mechanical, some people create a dummy customer called quoted customer, because then, of course, in anything that goes to that, instead of saying you guys,
You
it
could
would
say non-customer or whatever else.
Yeah,
right now.
customer quote is the customer name. Does that make sense? Just because they're really not a true customer yet because we've never done business with them. We're not quite sure if we're ever going to do business with them. If they accept our quote, then yeah, we'll set them up as an AR customer, an SM customer, but at this stage of the game, you got to kind of have, you could either use yourself for some sort of quoted customer,
Okay.
kind of a dummy customer that can be changed when you're awarded. Then you have to have all the real customers set up.
So
when
yeah,
they
we have
truly become a customer.
a dummy customer set up for Auburn Mechanical for that.
Would that, does that kind of you want to do it? So, but
Yeah,
you
but I
think,
think we should make a new
I
one.
would like it not to call it us.
yeah,
It'd be cleaner.
yeah, cleaner and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think we should make a new one for this system.
Quoted
Mhm.
customer, some type of dummy customer that's just, don't know that it's a quote to customer or something like that. Okay, so now it knows, and like I said, what customer and what service site. And now customer contact, now do me a favor, hit F4, I don't, that now we're going into this whole HQ thing once again. If it was a good customer of yours, and this is that Rolodex we were talking about, you'd be able to find them on here, because this is that table we were talking about this morning, that you can do
Right.
that whole thing. So if they were on that customer service site or that SM customer, then that would be a subset of that big HQ thing, because we would have already assigned them to the customer or to the service site, and you'd be able to see them popping up right there.
But if you don't have it, can you create that on the fly in HQ?
Yeah, see that,
Do I
hit-
create an HQ or
hit
the other?
setup. So this is kind of what we're talking about, is where you could add him to your Rolodex right now, so she just hit setup, bam, now she's in HQ contacts, and now she would be setting up a
I know
new
Brennan's contacts, so
customer
we
on
can-
the fly.
We can create him right here, Dean. Let's just for a test.
I just did plus on the other one,
Yeah.
is that right?
Yep, that's exactly, because there's usually nothing. And here's that guy.
I don't know, that's about right.
Brennan, Brennan. And McClurg is MC, capital CL.
Okay, now organization, since this isn't really linked, it's going to be linked to the customer, but this is another sortable, reportable field, but not required. Phones, as you can see, there's not a heck of a lot required,
Yeah.
except for the first name and the last name, and to put in here, but then there's all the optional Rolodex stuff that you'd ever need, email, phone, fax,
What's his function?
address.
Is 206-963-8641.
Was it 206?
Yep.
Up we-
Oh, why do you have to be like that?
I think we put a little space between the 206 too, and then a little space just to be consistent in the other places. Okay, so let's go ahead and hit save here.
You want to put his email in or not?
Oh, yeah, we sure could.
BAM, BAM, MCCLURG @gmail.com.
BAMM.
MCCLURG @gmail.com.
Cool. Cancel out of here. Now you can double click on him and put him in there. So all of this stuff is popping in there. Remember the service center was defaulting in there, but we could change it if this was pure water, quote, over to pure water. Okay. Over here on the right, requested by name, phone, etc. Is additional information.
So if it was somebody not Brennan, I would put in.
That's correct.
Whoever that was.
Brennan's the customer contact, but Betty Lou, was the one that requested.
I see something right here that I didn't see at the site level. See that sales rep? When we create a site, can we have a site rep that pulls through that's assigned to that site for that client?
What's your definition of a site rep?
So sales rep.
Sales rep.
So what I'm saying is when we created sites, I didn't see us have any field that we could have put the sales rep in.
That's technician is always what it is. It says technician.
So we can't assign who the account manager is.
Well, we can. We need a UD field for that.
Well, that's something
To
we
be
may
able to
want.
do that. Hit sales rep in there.
We need account manager at the site level or the customer level.
F4, the sales rep. So now I'm looking up the PR employees. So,
It would be me.
Where does that field need to be added to?
Well, see, here's what I want to ask Dawn a little bit. If we create a customer, if we create the account manager at the customer, then anytime you create a site, will it flow through to
hit
that?
F5. So on the SM customer, there's a primary technician, but over there, he likes the fact that there's a sales guy that can be done. But all I can do here is, it's not asking me who's the sales guy on it. It's asking me who they like Don because my brother-in-law's working over there. He kind of wants me to show up just because, you could put a preferred technician.
I'm sorry, how about what I think John's thinking about is later being able to run reports by sales reps and seeing whose accounts are generating
And
dollars.
profitability by sales rep and
Yeah. So that's a UD field because this is the only stuff that I have. If you kind of scroll down from the bottom here, this, I've got delivery methods. So this is my SM customer. As I go up there, I can give them a custom invoice format. I can group their invoices. As I scroll up here, I can review invoices. This reviewer isn't necessarily a salesperson. It's somebody, It's somebody who can review the invoices if you wanted invoices to be routed through there. But I don't have one, but I could create a UD field and make it work like this one right here. So what he likes over here is on the quote right here, please. There's a sales rep, and when you hit F4 on that, it's a lookup to the employee list, so you can, just pulling the employee number off and your name off the employee thing. But that doesn't exist currently on the SM customer, so we'd have to UD field that.
So you want it to go
Well,
to sales
what
rep?
about on
This is
the-
all staff too, this isn't, oh no, there's text there.
What about, hold on, but what about when you build a service agreement, and I'm sorry to go back there, is there a sales rep at the service agreement? So you know who the account manager is on that agreement?
Not at this time.
It's a big deal, so that somebody can run a list of who his customers are and all that. So that's why I'm just wondering if you built it at the root of the customer and it flowed through to the site, and you had that option on the service agreement too, then you could be able to run.
Well, if you put it on the SM customer, because of the linkage of the tables, the customer is kind of everywhere. I would have it, I could pull
That's
it.
the header, that's the header record.
Yeah. I could pull it from anywhere. So agreements, service sites, whatever.
And could you, if if First West had 10 sites, and at the customer it has me, and we've built 5 contracts that have maintenance, and so that has me, but we're gonna do one that's gonna be Joel, we could override it on the one to be Joel.
We would have to set it up that way. Does that make sense? By saying that, you're saying, hey, I like having it on the SM customer, but if necessary, if that customer was spread out to a lot of regions, perhaps this guy would be taking
That's what I'm saying.
the Sunday
CBRE
metro area, and
so
this guy would be taking the
one
northern.
person's not gonna own all of
Metro.
CBRE, but these sites could be owned by this guy, these sites could be owned by this guy.
And that's how Vista usually works in the other areas. It has the service site override to the default on the SM customer. But since the SM customer doesn't have a sales rep, we would have to build that sales rep in both locations as an override.
Is that what you want the name of the field to be, a sales?
Do you like that terminology?
We like
Account.
account manager.
Okay, do me a favor, hit F3 right there. And go to system override, please. See description in the label, it's form label and column heading,
Yeah,
right down below. Click in there. Type in account, and then what do you want to see, MGR?
Okay.
Enter. Account, MGR. Form labels the tab view, column heading is the grid view. So now,
I'm mad at all of you now.
She was so busy trying to pop off, she missed another one.
okay, apply and okay, please. And say okay.
Well, that's very cool.
Okay, so you can kind of rename some things in there. So when we create those UD fields at the SM customer, we'll just call it account manager. But then to be consistent, we can kind of go through and make sure that the sales rep is really that
I
account
just see, I think that there's an opportunity, Will, for us to actually create reports that say, show me the activity yesterday and by account mention, automatically email them so people could see the activity of a client, the whole thing. So there's some cool things later. But when we measure them, what's your account base, what's your growth, what's your cancellation, this is all going to roll to that.
No, that makes a lot of sense. So that's what we got to kind of keep our eye on. And these are everything in block font are the default data fields, and we can create as many UD fields as we want, but which is what we get right now until we start customizing the system to make it a little more user friendly.
Are we doing the UD fields? We do that, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's the royal we.
Yeah, he'll knock out a couple
Mr.
of those for us.
It's Will.
Okay. Okay. So now let's do a sequence, please. N is our plus is our next sequence. It's kind of finicky, isn't it?
Yeah, that didn't make any sense to me.
Okay. Now enter. Now hit F4. And once again, this is that little copy paste thing you guys were talking about. And this would be, if there was a whole bunch of these, click the little setup and go to the grid view, please. We would be able to kind of have a nice list of our copy paste stuff. And then when we're doing our quotes, it'd be a little faster than typing a bunch of stuff
Yeah,
in
because
there.
this is a good one to copy paste.
So that would be kind of the work scope thing we talked about, where, especially for
But if
quotes,
someone's building a quote, there isn't one, they can still go do a quote on the fly here.
you sure can. Because you could just type in the details and not add one permanently here. But if you did want to add one on the fly, you certainly could. So it wants the primary key to the left. So right there, instead of test backflows, we would,
repair, right?
we could call it, repair backflow. And then our description could be a little bit different. And then you could repair backflow.
Hold on, I'm just thinking out loud here.
Yeah.
In the work scope, when you go to look up, it's gonna come alphabetical, right?
When you do a lookup,
Yep.
it'll be sorted in alpha order.
So what I'm trying to say here, I'm trying to think with Gene, should we be saying backflow testing, backflow repair, so all the backflow stuff showed together? Do you know what I'm saying, Gene?
I do know what you're saying.
So,
Is it too late for me to fix that?
Now, let's right click, copy record, and go to next middle space, right click, paste record. Now it wants what the primary key is. Now flip this backwards and do what John said and call this black backflow repairs and then backflow test, and then it'll sort like that. And so then highlight the second one, and you can hit the big red X and say, yeah, get rid of that duplicate.
I was just asking if so I'm just trying to think about how groupings go, so yeah.
Yeah, it'll sort by those, and so it makes sense if you like the sort order, put in BA, and there'll be all your choices for backflow. And then she goes to backflow test.
Testing, right?
And now it's saved, and then she can hit the big red X. And then,
What is that? What's going on? It's the.
Guess what? Let's hit that other work order and click on that one. Let's hit F4. Oops.
I have something open somewhere.
He's got slot. It's usually that last thing you had open. The little stinker has got you locked. And it's always those lookups.
Yeah.
And so close out of there because you went to the setup from that lookup. And now when you close out of the lookup, so what we're going to do is go to that work order, please. And it's right here. Hit F4 and point it to one of the new and improved ones. Because it doesn't want to let go of that one because it's using it. Hit save. Now, when you go back in to your quote and hit F,
No, I need to go back in.
F5.
Okay,
because
I can-
now see F5 will
I
take
can get it
right
there.
to the setup. Now you can nuke that one because test can be deleted because we repurposed it. And
Gotcha.
now we're back to kind of how you guys want to use that going forward. Does that make sense? So good thing to keep in mind, whatever you put in that is kind of the primary sort. Now hit F4 and you're.
Sorry, that was my out loud voice. I got you.
So now you're grabbing it via that sorting mechanism that you
Yes.
talked about instead of that, okay? So, now notice there's kind of a date of a quote. Sounds like your current system, there's something, but we could move that in the grid and see how many you quoted on a day or something. This is normally the prospective date for the work scope. Hey, he's calling me today. This would just be a ballpark. When's he want me out there? So not required. But the choice there is due date or due within these days. So it's not required. You can leave it blank. If you do by, he'd be like, man, I should click on by. Then it says, I just want it by a certain date. If you click on the other choice, both are necessary. I need it within May 1st and May 30th. So you can either have an end due date
So
or
what
a range.
happens when it expires?
It's just a reportable date. It's not holding you to
But if you did that, you could technically run a report, show me all quotes that are expired for follow-up related to that, right?
What? Yeah. You could-
Push the wrong button. I don't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
John,
Yes.
the it in that sentence.
Yeah.
What the it that is due, right? Is that the quote that is due or the work that is due?
Well, since the header, because I got a header and a detail, the header this has usually the date that it was requested. There is really no due date here. So people usually use this as the reportable either by this date or there's a date range within the first 2 weeks of May or something like that. So,
By when the
Hold on.
customer wants the quote or the customer wants the work?
well, this isn't, usually it's the backflow repair request, but you could use it for however you want because it's not required.
Yeah.
It's just date information on this. And
I would just leave it blank then.
besides that, this is the only other date stuff.
So I have a question. So
Yeah.
she actually added an E on the back of this guy's name just because we're trying to keep data clean.
Here,
If we have an outstanding quote with the wrong contact information, when you want to go clean the contact, is it going to allow you because there's a record with it?
well, what you have to do is click into here, just hit F, oops, sorry, it's busting me. We'll finish this, then we'll go back and then we'll get back. Oh, I know. folks out here. See, if there's required information, doesn't want you coming up here, wants you to focus on what you're finishing down here. Now,
Is fast, can you go down to the speaker down there,
speaker,
right there?
She
Yeah,
goes in
and
here
just
and
click
she
it,
wants to
and just
change
turn it all the way
what
down.
I'm doing.
She wants to be quiet.
There you go. Perfect, thank
Well, I
you.
can't believe you guys listen to that dinging all day.
It
No.
hasn't been happening all
I
day.
just started making
You must
mistakes.
have,
You must have made her nervous because only when you came just
No,
happened.
Stacy, if it's bothersome in here, the big office upstairs.
I thought I would just hang out in here for fun.
okay. Now, call type, give me an F4 here, please. These were these 99 call types that we kind of had set up. So on this quote, do your quotes currently?
I'm sorry.
Now, nice thing about this is if you pull this down a little bit further, anytime you do a lookup, now granted, this won't give you all 99 just because you got so much, but the next time you look up, it'll open a little bigger because it remembers
So,
that you want to look up a bigger screen.
so I see the one I want, but if I couldn't see the one I wanted, how do I
Widen
find
this
it?
out a little
No,
bit.
can you start typing in it, or do you always have to do the lookup?
Well, if you knew your number, you could type it, but if you don't, you're gonna have to use some sort of search.
So the
mechanism.
number, they can know, which is why we also group by
It's gonna
numbers.
take a long time to remember all the numbers, so I want to know how to look it up.
Right.
Yeah.
So what would I do if I didn't know?
The groupings are HVAC, pure water, plumbing, et cetera. So PLU brings it down to his plumbing subgroups.
Okay.
And there's your backflow repair. Now here's a little trick sometimes. If there's some more stuff hiding down here, if you click on the right thing up there, it just kind of holds, that says view the detail, that says view the edit, that says view both. But sometimes it's easier just, especially from the back room, to see it this way. Okay?
So we had that description go to backflow testing. I wonder how come we had it on the same, on backflow repair.
No, it's different.
Repair backflow, she just did a little bit different text on
On
that.
the repair, it says
Oh,
repair the
gotcha,
backflow test.
gotcha, I got you.
So now she could continue to put as much customer-specific information about this quote as she would like to enter. Her customer, do this, do that, la-di-da, and then this would potentially print on the quote that you're going to give, which would further define the scope of work that we're going to do. Now, this is going to be important if you hit F4. Now, it's going to normally be 310. Because remember, we talked about this from an accounting standpoint earlier. The work order, high 90% are always going to be 0310 or 0410 for pure water. So if you wanted, we could put one of those F3 fixed values so it pre-fills, and you'd only change it as an exception.
I'd love
Otherwise,
to, no, I'd love to do that because
You
we
want-
don't even quote do your pure water work through this process right now.
so cancel out of here for a
Mhm.
second. Quiz time.
F3.
F3,
You already led me there.
go to the system overrides. User, if you put something, it would only affect her because she signed in as the user on this thing. She's going to go system, that type next to default is fixed value. Notice I got previous value, variable date, fixed value. The value is going to be 03.10. Apply and OK. Now, hit F4, you're going to have to put it in this time, but the next time you add a new sequence, guess what's going to automatically pop in there? 03.10. She can override it if necessary, but it makes sense to use those. If it's always this one thing, how come I'm always having to go in there and point to something when it should be a default?
Let it default.
But that's just labor. What if there's material and everything in here too?
No, that's a department. It maps everything. It maps everything. Material, equipment, the departments. Let's click into there real quick to division.
It's called field.
Hit F5. So just so you're comfortable, we set that up here, then go to the department. Oh, it's an evil web. We hit F5 again. This takes you to the mapping. Labor's going there, equipment's going there. materials going there,
So
subs
there's the
going there.
GL mapping in
So
there.
it's embedding some mapping. So by picking that and having that default behind the scenes, a bunch of stuff's ready for testing. So you guys, when you're working in work orders, don't gotta mess with it. It's all going on behind the scenes. Cancel, cancel, and that's looking sweet. If this customer had required a PO, that would be a required field. Remember that little field you were saying you got quite a few dozen customers that require
Would it be a
purchase
required
orders?
field at the time I'm generating the quote or at the time I release the proposal into a work order?
The work order becomes required
Okay.
before you save the work order. Okay.
Not the quote.
So now, here's the revenue end of it. Click your little down arrow. Okay, how does this guy, they quoted, do you always quote fixed price? Or do you ever throw out a T&M quote, or how does that work?
We generate the quote using the same method so that it either way works. So a lot of times what he's doing right now, he's entering, if we know it's 4 hours or and then it does the labor rate, and then he enters material and it does a markup, and then what the outcome of that, that's why I want 3 reports on how a quote can go out, whether it's detail or summary detail completely based on the reporting.
Okay,
But our current system, we put line items, right, Gene? By labor and by material, and then use the quantity of hours times a price book that's for that client, right?
Price book isn't connected to it.
But is it connected in this?
Well, we don't even see how to create the quote here yet. So I would tell you 65 to 74% of our stuff goes out as flat price, and sometimes we do time and material not to exceed.
Okay.
With what we price to the customer, if I'm understanding the question correctly. This
Yeah.
isn't telling us how to get to those numbers, it's just,
Can you have add a type there that's T&M not to exceed?
no, T&M, then there's hit T&M right there. Okay, then a not to exceed box pops out here. And it asks you which time and materials template you want to use. So notice, when she picked time and materials, this popped up. Click right in here one more time. So now she could do that. Now we're
Yay.
getting into her 13 rate templates
yeah,
and that kind of stuff.
that's good.
Now,
Why wouldn't the rate template go by the site?
it goes by the customer with the service site override.
Okay.
Okay,
So how come, because this thing isn't assigned, it didn't default?
cancel out of here.
No, it's,
Hit your little upper thing up there. Go into this customer, hit F, oops, close out here for just a sec. Nah. Oh, please. Go back over here, please. Okay, let's change this back to fixed price for just a sec, or flat price. So notice that little T&M not to exceed kind of popped away because it's that little shell game. If it's T&M, do you want to use a not to exceed? So let's put in 0 right there for a second. We'll bump that up here in a sec. Hit save. Now, at this stage of the game, let's hit end here. The system wants you for revenue purposes to allocate. Well, most people don't use this, but go to 100% against labor and do the full amount here, hit save. You could, some people have revenue for labor and materials separate and they can break out a percentage of revenue to labor and stuff. Most people don't use the revenue breakdown, but you have to tell the system to throw 100% somewhere. So rather than bust out labor, 80%, material 20% or something, you just got to do usually a default to the top one, which is labor.
on every quote?
Yes, yeah. So now hit this little thing up here, come to my customer, hit F5. Nice thing about F5, it pops me straight into the setup. Had that rate template been there, it would have pre-filled down under. Remember you're saying,
That's
hey,
what I was trying
how
to
come
make
there
sure.
was no rate template associated with that? The hierarchy goes, if there's a rate template on the customer, grab it from there. Cancel out of here.
It's not,
If there isn't one there, go to the service site,
yeah, it's
hit
there.
F5, and grab the rate template from here. So If it's at the customer, then all service sites will use that rate template. If it's here, it'll use that on that work order and pre-fill. But we had to pick one because
We've never done.
Set up.
because
it
it's a
wasn't
setup.
on the setup, didn't know how to do it. Save, cancel it there, please. So that's kind of, yeah, click on that detail. That's the retrieval hierarchy for T&M. Okay. So, taxes, do you guys ever, and I'm talking the revenue, the billing end of it, are you ever using taxes, or are you required to do sales tax or anything on billable
Sales
amounts?
tax, yep.
On billings?
Yep.
Okay, so hit your little down arrow here. The tax source is the
Margaret?
service site.
Margaret, look at this.
Okay,
Yes.
now
And then it would be sales, right?
sales, and then hit
And then-
F4.
The tax code needs to be, those need to be set up.
And this is where we're going to have a big list. This is once again, if you hit setup, this is on accounting
But
We have to pick.
homework.
You'll have to, so what we're gonna do is, so right now in Maxwell, you kind of have those 2-digit codes that kind of don't really relate to the, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna actually set up, so like Seattle is 1726, so the code, the tax code would be 1726, and that would be Seattle. And then come up with a way, because I think when we talked before, Dawn, I don't think there's a way for, that whole non-taxable or the wholesale piece of it is basically set up a non-taxable or a wholesale tax code for Seattle. So whether we do like 9/17/26 or some code, so it's Seattle, but it's non-taxable.
We
But-
can put
okay,
a
but that would be-
zero rate. That way, we can at least, it'll know, don't do any tax.
It'll
But
show
there'll
up,
be a basis that we can report on rather than leaving it blank.
so I'm assuming that on the tax report, the sales tax report that we need to generate in order to do the B&O tax,
There will be a
That's-
basis.
we'll have a separate sales amount for all the ones that use that
That is
non-taxable account.
And there'll be a basis with a zero tax
Yes.
amount.
Yes.
So then you'll be happy,
basically-
but here's, I'm sorry.
Basically, what she's saying is leaving it blank isn't the same as setting up a zero tax.
No.
Because blank means, don't even worry about it, it's
It's-
not applicable on this.
Well,
Whereas zero would allow you to report
we
on
need to report
a
it
taxable
wholesale
basis with zero
For
tax.
B&O
withheld.
tax.
Okay, I gotcha.
Okay.
So here's my question.
Yes.
Should all be set up at the site.
The tax right now is all set up as part of the
Site level.
site setup. And
And it would pre-fill from here. So,
Okay.
what's happening
Go
is,
from here, and then can you override it at the site?
well, the service site right here is the tax source. So I'll click into there for you. Hit into this site and hit F5, please. So on here, I can have a tax code right there. And so F4, and if that's there, then it's going to pre-fill down into any work
What is
order.
those gonna
So
be? Are those
it's
gonna be
kind of
zip
gonna
codes
be
or
like,
no, it's the tax code.
no, it's the tax code.
how is,
It's already assigned. It's just gonna have to import over.
no, but when someone creates a new site, how do they know what tax code to put in?
Well,
They gotta.
we look it up
They
right
gotta
now.
look it up on the Department of Revenue website.
And do we do that now?
So we
Yes.
get the specific, and so
That's how
when
come
you
there's
see
not very many
that-
people who are allowed to set stuff up, because there were people who were letting it default to zero, and then Margaret was bang me over the head with her report. So now I don't let that happen anymore. We do preemptive strike.
Well, like I said, so the tax code that comes up on the Department of Revenue website is ultimately
Gonna mass. It'll be,
gonna be something,
That would
I mean,
be-
if it's, yeah,
that'll be
it'll
lovely.
be a lot easier.
Yeah.
That'll be lovely.
If you have a tax code set up here, so this is the site level.
The-
Yeah.
The physical
And then
location.
If at the other screen, whatever screen it was.
Work orders are always, cancel out of there, are always for a service site. That will pre-fill and can be overridden if necessary. but that's where it comes from, is that
Okay,
Right.
so ultimately,
because the
if
tax
site,
source
then
is service
this
site.
will automatically pre-fill
Pre-fill.
with what's there.
That's
So now, if they're in here, can they, for whatever reason, if this happened to be a different tax code?
Yeah, if some guy
They
on
could
site,
override.
some GC asked us to do something, it was not taxed, we can go right here and make the tax site not taxed.
No, because I wouldn't need to, because it's, if the site,
You might
But
be
you
billing
have
a customer.
situations, so now, here's a question. So we have a customer who has a tax deferral. So we need to report them the sales as
tax
retail,
exempt, yeah, or something.
but then we get to deduct it as a tax deferral.
So we would need a specific code that would allow us to group and report on that. With the zero tax, correct? That's another one of those zero
Yeah,
tax.
it's a zero tax.
So
But
what-
then, so
But
do
we
we
still
have
have to
any?
know what city it takes place.
Yeah, no, and I mean, that we can associate with the tax code. So I guess the other question is there, I believe, that in their billing process, so you also have a different customer who says, we have a manufacturer exemption certificate, and so we're not gonna pay tax on labor, but we'll pay tax on everything else.
Mhm.
When they're in there doing their billing, can they,
Yeah, so
do they have that
here's
flexibility
where
to
that,
override?
pop in right here, please. So in here, on the work order, please, go to the work completed tab, please. So, scroll way to the right, all the way over here, please. So it's billable,
Oh, here's your tax.
and then the
So
tax
you can
code
change the tax code.
is by line type.
oops, sorry.
So the type, let's make sure we have these set up properly. Scroll back to the left for just a sec. And let's go to where it says cost type, right there, where it says 2. Hit F5. So on this table, go to your grid view, please. And pull this out so she can see how different types of cost can be either taxable or not. So we set up all 7 types of costs that we're mapping to
Yeah.
cost of sales as potential to be taxable using the taxes that you're going to set up in HQ
Yeah.
tax. So all of those are eligible, then cancel out of here. Then when we start costing things, then scroll to the right again
She
for
can
me.
select the different
I
tax
can
code.
pick and choose which ones I want to have a rate, and then the basis will be coming from the billable amount. And you'll be able to see right here before we create the invoice, how taxes on the billing are going to be affecting it by type of cost. So you'll be able to say, hey, is labor taxable? Then yes. If materials aren't, no. And you'll be able to manage it and see it before you create your invoice. We set up everything to be potentially taxable,
Yeah,
but here's, we got to tell it yes or no.
So that's
Oh,
exception
what's going
management
on?
at the invoicing level, you can't set that up specific to the customer or the site that has those anomalies? I have to know.
well, so here's the thing is, so this is particular to Seattle Genetics. It's a matter of, because they pay some with tax and labor, everything is tax. And then there were a few that we had to go back last year, and I'm still.
I know,
waiting to
still
work all
messy,
that
I
out.
know.
That she came back and provided the certificate and said, we don't pay tax on labor, and had us adjust everything. So even for them, they have, and I don't know what the criteria is on their side specifically.
Yeah, whatever that is, but so let's
So-
pretend it's Seattle Genetics and that they bought this stuff from us. So at the time of billing, I need to go, oh, Seattle Genetics doesn't pay tax on labor, and hit that button
But what I'm saying is that it's not consistent across the board.
with
I don't
Seattle
know if
Genetics.
you can get Emily to give you a clear guideline. I know.
Emily won't answer the phone.
That's
Probably not.
That's why I still have the whole
But
issue with the tax.
But, you know, when Wrexham doesn't pay tax,
So they're a difference. That was the other situation that
but you can set that up at the customer or the site level and
Yes.
make it not be taxed every damn time I do my job.
yes. So it's a matter, that one's a little bit funkier. Because they have to be reported, it has to be reported as, so the B&O tax we have to pay at a retail rate, but then we're not collecting sales tax because they pay it directly, so it's a little bit funkier, I don't know how well, we'll have to kind of test it out.
Yeah, I
see
think
how
we're gonna
we'll
just have
work
to
on that.
test it out.
Because it'll be interesting to see how it flows onto the actual sales tax report for then putting the B&O tax report together.
Right, but if I have the ability on
But-
these anomalies to
Holy
set those
cow,
up
we're
as
getting a long
sites.
way away from the fuel quote.
But if we set them up as a problem at an exception management at the site level, then my billing coordinator or my quote generator doesn't have to know, oh, this is
Yeah.
such and such a company, I have to do this.
And I think probably we can work with that with
Okay.
Wrexham. I don't think that that's going to be very feasible with Seattle Genetics unless they can give us a good, clear
If in doubt,
guideline.
bill them out.
So,
Yeah,
yeah, that doesn't necessarily.
I know, that's
It
not
doesn't
good
work
for you.
very
Because the
well.
thing is then it kicks back and we've got to manually correct it.
Okay.
all right.
So let's minimize that. I just wanted to kind of show you a little bit about that. Okay. So there's your taxes. So we're going to create all the tax codes to be able to taste that. There's your PO. The material tax override, if you hit your little down arrow right there, no sales tax, or use tax for accruing use tax. So there's a couple of things in there. Okay. So now what you're saying is in a flat price, you're going to start deriving it. And did you say you did kind of a labor materials breakdown, something like that, and he wants to be able to roll it up or give me the detail that's going on, or
Well, yeah,
have a
some
checkbox.
fashion that,
Give you some variables about how that's going to look. Okay. So,
well, and where the guy does the math, like where do I do the math to come up with the flat price?
so that's, see, to the right, there's a whole bunch more tabs. Go up top.
Oh, I see, okay, thank you.
Okay, so tasks, okay. Now, we haven't got into these heavy duty, but if you hit standard tasks right there and hit F5. Okay. Oops.
Nothing happened.
Okay. Okay, so what are standard tasks? If there's certain things that you do over and over and over again, so just like we got standard items that are standard billing items that we bill over and over and over again, these would be standard tasks. And if I grab those things, you're going to see that I have material, equipment, labor. And so, for instance, if you were doing some sort of compressor work or something like that, and there was X amount of materials and X amount of labor, you could set it up, and then you'll see what the byproduct of this is. Because pull this to the right for just a second.
So is our standard
If I
item,
don't use standard tasks, then I got to go in here and say how much material, how much labor.
Oops, I'm sorry.
But, well, we happen to be in the standard task thing at this point in time, kind of going through that. But basically, T&M means, well, without forgetting about the equipment variable, usually labor and material, time and material,
Right,
and then miscellaneous stuff. And then
miscellaneous are standard items?
Yes, exactly. So we're building kind of the items off of here. Do you got anything like standard tasks now where one thing I can put this and this, grab it, and already knows, oh yeah, that takes me 4 man-hours and this much?
no, our technicians generally provide us the estimate based on the reality of that specific situation.
Mhm.
There's some things though that we could do with materials. So for example, leak check and repair is always gonna have certain fees associated with it, but those are in our standard items.
We would typically go to labor down here and we would start going 12 hours.
Okay,
So that's how you
so
start.
we can go there and bypass the tasks. But
Or we could come
notice
back to it at
there's
some point.
tabs to the right.
Yeah,
And if I did something here, you'd be like, hey, it knows how much material and labor for this task. So it's optional.
This is your templates, the tasks.
Yeah, they're kind of, yeah, they give you little estimating templates is what they're doing, saying, hey, this takes 4 man-hours or whatever. So let's go ahead and hit undo because we don't have to use standard tasks. But go to materials, okay? So now go N, okay? And your task, now serviceable item, hit F4 and do a lookup. Now, since we picked on that service site, guess what you're seeing here? Okay? So quotes can be equipment specific or not equipment specific. Is that kind of how you guys got it too? So if I want to point to some of those equipment, I can, but they do not have to be equipment specific.
Yeah, and we want to if we know.
We want to, absolutely. We don't currently.
Okay.
But
Well, he's entering it in the description. That's how he's telling them.
correct.
Yeah.
But it's not reportable. And this will be
Well,
reportable.
and depending on the report you create out of Crystal, it'll pull that right now out of here instead of a field or whatever.
So, like I said, if it is affecting a piece of equipment at that service site, grab it. If
Right.
not, you don't have to. It's
Okay.
not a required field, but it's available to you.
That's
Okay,
It's
so
cool.
cancel out of here. So I'm on the material tab, and so since I'm on the material tab, guess what's required? Material.
Mhm.
Okay, now this is where if you hit F4, do you know, type in your little FL. So like I said, if you want it itemized, it's going to take a couple of filters.
Yeah, this isn't anything like that.
Huh?
So this is one of those things where it's going to be,
It's going to be random.
Unique
We're not
every
going to be
time.
going from a database a lot because we're going to be buying a motor or board from some.
this is a
things.
backflow repair kit. So it's, it's going to be a backflow repair kit, not something that is.
And it's not on your material
And it
list
won't
on
be.
your HQ. So we're going to have to create a couple of quoted materials. So hit F5. So what you got to do in this situation is, unless you want to go over and use standard items. So this is where that report you're talking about is. Does your report kind of sort by materials and labor right now?
What do you mean
I
by
don't know
report?
what-
The quote, the little proposal report that comes out of your system. And he says, sometimes I just want to see the $1,000. Other times I'd want to see 400 for labor,
That is-
300 for equipment, and 300 for
Our
something.
current one goes
Adding
to,
up to 1,000, but what are my breakdowns to labor, materials, maybe a standard item or something like that.
Yeah.
So we're kind of building it. If it's going to be material, then at least I'd have a dummy thing called quoted material and I'd be able to throw it. But then it's going to be generic on his quote, right? Because I can't give a quote with specific filters and belts if the filters and belts. I just have a generic thing called,
belts,
you certainly could.
parts. So.
Okay,
So,
exactly. If I don't want to grab an actual
right, but
item off of my
currently right
non-stock
now,
item.
if we were replacing a water heater,
Mhm.
we might list water heater as one line item because we know we have a quote that costs $800 and it marks it up, whatever that is appropriate. We might enter another line that's pipe and fittings and miscellaneous and have that a separate line item and it marks up whatever that is.
Okay.
Then we might have some service.
So cancel out here. Let me give you your two choices, but most people like to do it with material because the reports come out of material. Hit undo right here for a second. Go to the miscellaneous tab over here. Okay. Now go to your standard items right there. Hit F4 here. So either
Our standard items are,
We know the
are standard billing items, but these are my two choices. If you want these standard items, pull that out for a second. You'll see material. I just widen that to the right so we can see some other choices. Hit your setup at the bottom. So on the standard item setup, I can put a cost type for material, but somehow you've got to group these items to know what is material and what is labor, right? Because that's what are the roll-ups that you just asked for. You said, sometimes I just want to see the $1,000, but sometimes I want to see what the labor is, what the
So
material
there's
is.
no free form entry on material that we could enter. So when you were in the material tab, on the left up there,
Cancel out of here. Material to this stuff, if you cancel out of here, I have to grab something, hit material, yep. Actually hit undo right there, please. And then hit the material. If it's material, notice in yellow, I gotta either have a dummy piece of material called quoted this or something, or whatever. I gotta put something in there. Otherwise, I gotta use the standard items.
okay, we're going to have to
That's
give that some thought.
problematic.
That's
really
a
problematic.
problem.
you know what?
Let me show you what life is right now, okay?
It's just a free form and thing where you just kind of
Why,
Great.
what is that?
It's just
It won't
resolution.
run on that resolution.
Okay.
So your idea of showing him might not work.
Can I go to the?
Sounded good for a minute.
I know, right? Is there an O?
Let me show you.
Let me talk out loud through this. Is there a O? Can I get to the O drive somewhere?
Yes, you should be able to get to the O drive.
This PC.
This is an output. Geez. What's my life happening here? Most of the time, it's this flat dollar amount that goes to the customer. But
That's
in
easy.
here, we write some language that we're doing the pump motor and the bearing assembly along with the new flow switch. If I went and pulled this up in Maxwell, the way that we come out to this price is we write in, we're doing the pump, we're doing the motor, and then we're doing the,
6 hours at
can I
whatever.
show you on this little screen? Because I think it's an output that we're looking for.
This is on your quote.
Well,
Yeah.
it's how you're estimating,
Mm-hmm,
but then you can roll it up to be a summary.
mm-hmm.
But we want Will to create a few reports where here's our summary, and the customer goes, well, I need to break out, so you can click it without doing any work, and
I
summary
want
lists
it
the
by
item,
cost type.
a summary by labor, material, that, or a detail, this part, this part, this part, this part,
Sorry, it's so
whatever your
small.
entry was on that.
But here's, this one is a pump motor or something.
Pump motor and flow switch.
Okay, that output goes to this quote right here.
And now you've got
Why, it
some
won't
labor
open.
material breakdowns
It won't
of that
open.
25, 78,
Okay, there we go.
70.
So what we do is we have this line items like this. This is what he does right now, is he writes the math in.
What's the top two categories?
This is a standard item and this is a standard item.
Okay, those are your miscellaneous
Those are
ones.
my miscellaneous
And
ones.
that's
And
what
there's-
those are,
Here's his labor,
okay?
and then in this case, he just wrote materials.
Okay.
But in another case, so then when he goes to send it to the customer, this is his choice of how to send it. So this is where he changes the different format for how it goes out the door. But in this case, it went out as this lump sum, right? But let me find one that is.
But to explain for John, right now he put one line item for materials in there. It's not always that simple.
It's
He
not.
might have 10 items, a water heater and a pump and whatever it might be, because the client
So
may end
this-
up needing some breakdown.
So this is a decent example. He wrote just line item for materials here. He has a quote someplace that tells him that's the selling price.
Mhm.
But we also have a truck rental, an oil sample, and some additional weird labor that we don't usually have.
Okay.
And so he's doing this math offline, but then as he puts everything in together, it does the math up here.
Based on the price book.
No. We have to put this in here.
We manually do the
We
price
have to
book
push the man, yeah, it doesn't connect to the price book.
for quoting, but I'm billing it would go off the price book.
That's
Okay.
correct.
And that's similar how we work. I mean, that is the same thing as those little tabs. Now, all this text here and stuff like that, obviously, it's got to pull from somewhere, and the text fields are easily pulled.
Yeah, that's in the report.
And we can do anything with text. It's the numbers and the breakdown of the amounts and the takeoff for the quote of how you're going to get all that detail by labor, materials, and those miscellaneous items.
Right.
So let's go back to Vista to the quote. You're going to use one of those three tabs, material, labor, or miscellaneous items. So the question is, in the sort order when we create it, if I use the material tab, then I've got to create enough HQ materials that can be quoted materials that you can use over and over for quoting purposes only.
So then we would have to just do a quoted material.
Well, or however much, he was saying sometimes there can be 8 or 10. In a simple one like that, it just said material had one line item.
Right.
He's like, no. Sometimes I want to see material
There's a
broken
major
down by
item like
this,
a water
this,
heater or
this,
something, they
this,
may
this.
want to see the price.
I can have a grouping of those that will work the same. Does that make sense? I would put a zero amount on them when I set them up in HQ, but when I grab them off, then I could make those quantities and those amounts whatever I wanted in here. Because that's what you said he's kind of doing is, it's just in a mock-up creating.
Yeah, he's doing all the math offline,
So
so.
can you
we
create
could-
these on the fly then? Because
Well,
there's no
you
way we're
wouldn't
going
want
to
to.
figure out how to put preemptively all that stuff in there. We don't know it. It's different every time.
But he's not doing it right now. He's doing, right now we have 4 fields. And then we can free flow each field.
But depending on the client, when you do veto quote, you're breaking down things a lot deeper. with that
Absolutely.
client. So
So you enter it differently, and then your output format you pick differently.
right, but he has to have the input in order to have that. If that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Depending on the client,
Yeah.
you can lump sum some things and other things you can't lump sum
Yeah.
some things. So that's how do you have a standard material when that's not standard?
What are your other
I
clients
think you
do?
could potentially create a few items in your miscellaneous, your standard items. It could be just materials, blank, whatever, so you could, when they are just single lumps like that, you could just do them right there and.
So let's kind of do this and then we'll undo this if it doesn't work out. So hit F4, grab that filter, but imagine it can be anything you can ever imagine because this list can be anything, okay? Then you can say in each, if it's just so hit enter and then material category. Like I said, if it's 1 is all and it's going to cost them, well, that was $2,500, so put in $500. Enter, okay?
But
If
hold
there's
on,
any-
why did you override that? Why wouldn't it have done by the price book of that site?
Well, if you're saying if it's a miscellaneous and it changes, I'm just saying there would be a generic 01 out there if you were going to have the material be different every time. I
Right.
grabbed a filter that was $2.31
Right, so if we had one that was set up and it was just said material,
and it had a $0
$0 amount,
you'd be overriding it exactly like you
But
did
you still
there.
have to figure
and
the
then
math
right
in instead of the
here,
price
hold
book
on, let me
doing it.
ask this question.
Yeah.
Right here, can I put water heater,
This is, I
FEI,
could
quote?
pull that description instead of the generic description. Does that make sense? In this little thing, so we could change, so I could pull on that crystal report this description because the generic description was material. And you could put that right next to it because you can drag it and drop it right there. And material, call it what you want it to call. I can pull that on my crystal report. Does that make sense?
For every line item.
If it's a variable, and but I still, if I use the material tab, I have to grab that generic material with the 0 amount.
That would work.
And then I could, per line item,
5,000 fittings,
make sure
whatever
that
you want to put
I
in
was
that
going to
item.
kind of
That
use
would work.
that one.
That would work,
Okay.
but he would, Will have to set the crystal report up to pull from that then.
That's correct. On that report, it's on there. We would grab that because that would specifically, because
And of the
obviously
3
that
versions
generic
we
material.
have, some might show it and some might, depending on whether we want to lump sum
You
or
would
not.
take the default report that they already have that does it by the material, we make a copy of that, we would name it something different that says
Summary.
With
or
notes.
detail.
with notes, there you go, and then I just replace the material with notes or whatever, or add that. So,
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's go forward then.
Does that make sense? But I'd want to use just some sort of generic material code in HQ materials with a 0 amount that we could override
Should we go set that
and
up?
that kind of
So
stuff.
I just have one question. So if they had multiple material items and her notes was unique to each of those items, how would that crystal report know to pull all those items? Would it understand that every time the note changed
And,
to continue to re-pull the same?
so I hit F4, grab the same one, but we'll pretend this, hit FL, but we'll pretend this is the generic material one, so grab exactly the same one each, and then put in one of those, and then $200. And then her little description over there would be like description number 2. So his report could either, and this is kind of the option he was looking for, either he wants to see the detail or maybe have it roll up and just show me 700 and call it material, or give me the detail and show me the breakdown of the material by.
Right,
By,
right. So my
Follow
question
too.
is, if
Yeah.
you want to push out the detail, then would Crystal report, no, if you're using the same miscellaneous material code, but you're just putting in additional
sequences.
notes, that it would continue to pull all those in into one list of materials?
That's where we'd have to tell the crystal report to either summarize to the material
itemize those
or
sequences.
itemize, and the report would have to be smart enough. If it's summarized, then I'd have to use that, the material description, which would just be material. Because when you summarize, obviously, then I can't get the detail.
Right.
I would just get a material total line. Whereas if I got the sequence, then my notes would replace it, and that crystal report would understand how to do that.
So based on that, should we have a standard item that's subcontract, so we could use a standard item subcontract, just put a number in there instead of having to do the
We
material?
can either do it as a material or a standard item, but
Thank you.
which do we want to do though? Do we want to set up a generic material or do we want to set up a generic standard item
Yeah,
that says
subcontractor is not one of your cost categories up there?
not?
No, it would have to fall into the miscellaneous as a sub, and the cost type would have to be subcontract, so we could grab it there. So, and we could call it subcontract or whatever the case may be.
Okay.
So
It would have to live in the miscellaneous area.
so we have to set up a new one.
Subcontract, and it would be cost type to subcontract, yeah. You betcha. Yeah, because these are our materials, our equipment, our labor, and miscellaneous would have to handle subs or any other.
But if you had the line items in there and it was there and it said subcontract, then it would show if someone did need a breakdown, labor or material, subcontract, whatever.
So hit that 4, well, actually, this cost type, you really don't need to, but if we wanted to sort in here, we'd have to kind of know how to sort these things. The cost type, if you F4, is labor, materials, sub-equipment. So if some standard items you wanted to summarize into sub and some equipment rented or something, I'd have to have that as kind of a tagging thing on how to group those things on an invoice. Would we want to group, because most people on, let's say like labor, materials, sub, equipment,
So we
some
would,
sort of logical groupings on an invoice.
I'd like that.
well, normally we list those as an individual line item, right? But we could summarize them in the summary one.
For that summary report. you're talking.
Summary, which list them all. Well, I'm saying it by cost type, if he was gonna go, the problem is, some of these fees, we need to see if they were gonna be itemized, right?
Yeah.
But if it was a roll-up deal, you enter them in there, but it could roll up and just be in the summary one.
Or you need to know how to group them together by just putting subcontract, whatever, it wouldn't know, but if you have
Okay,
other
right
things.
now,
that you
under
do,
cost type, you're gonna put a 3 underneath that cost type.
That's correct. And then the materials will do cost type 2, et cetera. Equipment rented, we had to have cost type 5. And then that sort order, it can know how to group those things because the text isn't good enough, but that cost type, because normally that's how people want to see them, is kind of invoices grouped by that type of
We'll have to play
information.
with what comes out and see.
And so
Yeah, so let's
So are we-
double click on 3 right there, and all you're doing right there is saying subcontract is the subcontract. So we put a bunch of these things, if applicable, to group them as materials or other or something like that. If you wanted to use them, the system would have to know how to group them on that report, because your report needs to be grouped
So if it
strategically.
didn't have anything, it could list them individually, right?
And
Or it has to go into other or whatever,
Wouldn't know how to group them,
right?
wouldn't know the groupings. Okay.
So do we want
Yeah.
to make a generic material thing under material or under our standard items then?
I would rather it be material. I just think some things are gonna flow by material, labor, and equipment. There's no subcontractor tab, so I think we would create one under material. So it's easier to train when it's here's material and here's sub and here's.
Okay. I'll go ahead and hit undo on that, but yes, we're looking for information. Okay, So, yeah, material or miscellaneous is gonna have all your materials, usually your equipment rented, subcontract, et cetera, et cetera. Equipment, do you ever put equipment on a quote? And by equipment, we as a Vista product believe it's our equipment owned or rented in the equipment management module. It's not major pieces of equipment. It's whenever Vista says equipment, think equipment management module in Vista, which are trucks, service vans, jetters.
Yeah, well,
Does
Except
that
we're,
make
we're
sense?
gonna keep the jetter in that spot now.
Right now.
Or you could use your miscellaneous thing and we put a cost of equipment on that. Does that make sense? If your jetter wants to live in miscellaneous as a standard item.
Agreeing with whether we would have the jetter and miscellaneous standard, do we have, is it in standard items now?
Nope.
So we don't have a way to build that. We would want.
Well, that's because we didn't decide, so it needs to, when it's decided, then we'll either put it in equipment or in miscellaneous standard items.
Right now, it's an equipment.
Yep.
So is it in there now?
Yeah, go to equipment tab, click on that. So then,
Where would I look in that?
EM company, put in 201, please. And then F4, please. And jetter, 200 down there. And now one jetter, and hit F4 on the revenue code. Normally this is, hit the little setup button right there. By equipment category, go to the revenue rates tab, hit F4 on your revenue code. On a jetter, is it usually a daily thing? Is it an hourly thing?
We're doing an hourly.
Let's double click on one and then hit save here. So we just need to know that that's an hourly feature. Cancel that here. Double click on one. Revenue code 1 means hourly. Say okay. So hours, how many hours would you want to use that jetter? If you said 4 hours and that was $50 an hour, that would extend over to $200 or whatever. So
Can we preset the dollar amount in there somehow?
yeah, if you'd put that revenue code in there, it would pre-fill. So, but does that change or is it always the same?
It's $150 an hour.
So, do me a favor, hit the revenue code back there for just a sec. Back one, hit 5, please. Go to your revenue rates tab. Instead of 0, put in 150. Save. Okay, cancel. Okay. Hit undo at the top just for a second, we'll put this line fresh. Go to EM company.
201.
201 is our test company, it'll be company 1 will go live. F4 under category, grab our 200 jetter, please.
Can you just enter 200 if you know it?
Yeah, you sure could. 4 hours. And revenue code 1 is the hourly one. And notice the rate, the pre-filled $150 there. 4 times 150. Oops. Scroll to your right.
I need one jetter.
Oh, yeah, 1 jetter times 150 is 600. So she was like, I need a lot of jetter.
There's a lot of jetter
Okay.
happening.
So now, in the equipment grouping on that crystal report, there'd be material, equipment, sort of, at least we have an equipment for a jetter at 4 times 150. So equipment means look into our equipment master and look for some charge rates because it's, the definition is our equipment module.
So have we done labor yet?
No, let's go to labor.
Material, equipment, now we're in labor.
Okay, task. Okay. Enter. Enter. Now, how do you usually do this? Do you notice it's saying, do you want to do it by craft or class or technician? Or how do your labor rates usually get quoted? Is it by individual or by what classification they're in?
What craft?
What
It's
craft?
by class. It's not by craft, it's by class. Right now we're calling journeyman. Because it's not by plumber or HVAC. right?
Okay,
Okay,
Well, I'm asking you, how do you do it now? Right now, it's just by the
we
rate.
don't have any pricing that's set up as class and craft right now.
so let's minimize this for just a second. So where you have to do to set up some standard rates, go to Vista at the bottom left, please, to the main menu. And I'm looking for my, where's my labor code? Labor cost estimate. Up a couple. There we go. Okay. One. And sorry, sometimes it's one, but other times it's enter next. Okay, enter, 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 F4. Now, notice this is saying, is it craft specific? Sounds like you use a couple different unions, but it's journeyman, cancel out of here. If it doesn't really matter about the craft, cancel out of here.
It does.
Well, I got it. So
You-
F4.
You know what it is? It's always that pay type of 1, 2, 3, 4. It's always either regular time or overtime based on the customer's labor price book. Does that make sense?
But you don't have a customer yet, so you're going off your preferred?
No, we'd go off of standard.
If we did that.
That's what I mean,
But most
standard,
of
sorry.
our quotes are against, most of them are against the site that we're doing work at. It's a customer that has a price book, whether it's standard or whatever, so.
Not a new customer.
No. I mean, occasionally you do, but that's the exception.
I
Do
got
you understand what I'm saying, Don?
Yeah.
It normally just goes, that's why we put a price book
Those
on. When we set up a new
markup
site,
tables
it gets standard.
markup costs, but they don't, you need cost to mark up those things, but those same tables don't create the budget or estimate for this.
Because there's no costs.
That is correct.
Okay, so then how, so,
So go to your craft for a second there. Let's hit
Create a dummy
F4.
one?
So which union do your journeyman work out of?
32,
So let's go.
both these two.
So let's grab 32 and hit F4. And usually you quoted journeyman rates.
Yeah,
Okay, so let's grab J. Well, actually, it doesn't matter what they are. And usually bid at straight time, overtime, double time rates.
Yep.
this
based on the
whole thing.
customer's price book.
Well, what's the cost rate?
So we do 21 hours at 150. If it's 150 is our standard rate. If they're a preferred customer, 141. If it's,
I was just
you know,
wondering
one
what
of
the
our
cost
preferred
rate,
rate.
what that means up there, is that just a number?
But the guy's gonna be entered through payroll, it's gonna hit cost by what he charges to the job, by his class. So,
But that's not how we quote it.
no,
Well,
we quote it,
fixed
we quote
price,
it, quote it
you know.
by the
Yeah,
labor rate.
but Vista has, like he's talking about, abilities to run a fixed price against a work order. So you can set it up for a flat rate.
T&M it certainly will do, but in a fixed price, you better be bidding it right, because sure, labor's gonna drive it, but they better be working fools,
So-
because.
Well, we-
It
we-
depends
Yeah, we
on-
do that now, right? So we do backflow repair, it's 4 hours of materials, truck charge, and then we tell the customer it's $1,258.
So when he does his little workup,
Yep,
is it using currently your rate tables to do this workup?
yep. For the material markup and for the, no, you know what? Don, let me say that over again. He's doing the math based on those, but there is no rate table built into this.
It's kind of how Vista is. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
He can do the math, but
Mhm.
it's not gonna mark it up, because it does it on the cost level, but not here on the budgetary level, but he has to do the math. Does that make sense?
But for labor rate too?
Sure,
Why you have all those
currently what we
rate
do is
templates
we
then?
just write in material.
For actual billing purposes, for time and material billing.
Yeah, but we're quoting off those rates too.
So like I said, that's the,
So, see, that's the whole thing, when you have those rate templates,
It doesn't feed
Why
into.
wouldn't you quote off those if you're billing off those?
Well, we do, so what happens right
Why do you
now is
quote
there's
off
a
those?
line
Why
item in
wouldn't
here.
I know, why wouldn't we? If we're billing.
when you have
We
the
use
general
those for
rates, why
billing,
wouldn't we
would
quote
not
off those?
Why are you
We
quoting off
say it's
some
8
other
hours on this, why wouldn't we estimate
Well,
it like that?
one? Agreed.
So they
And you
used to
can.
just do Word
Yeah.
documents. And now, when we started using bid entry, which was like 3 years ago, I'm not sure that every single thing was activated because they weren't usually using it, originally using it. So right now, there's a drop down and it says labor. And then I type in standard labor, and then I type in 150, and then I type in 6 hours.
Gotcha.
And so I have to know that that's a standard rate customer, that's not a CenturyLink or a City of
But we
Seattle.
hoped it would match the price book, because once you said it, nobody can
But
go
on here, like, so besides all that, the way we do it now, on here, it just seems weird that, because we just went through that whole thing where we put in the rate templates and we put out work order and we did the billing on it and everything based off that rate template and our markups.
It does it for costing and not budgeting.
That's weird. That's
Does that make
weird.
sense? The
Yeah.
work with, it works on the
you-
work completed tab, and that's where the T&M templates are applied,
Mhm.
but they do not apply them down here in the
Yeah, 'cause when you're gonna
budgetary
build
takeoff
them,
area.
you would think that's how you're gonna quote your next customers, how you build your
Same pain in the
customers.
ass. Just don't bear with my bluntness here. But it's how do you
That is
take
weird.
it 80% of the way? Because the whole idea, you build that so that you could,
Well,
That'll
and I'm
flow
not
through.
saying in a future release, they aren't
I
gonna
was gonna
add
say,
that
because
functionality into
Under
there.
that work completed, can we go there real fast, put it side by side? Because you have these three options, but you also have your other
I
option.
need pay type. I
Yeah.
need straight time, overtime,
Yeah.
overtime that doesn't exist in here right now.
That, exactly.
So we have had requests to, because you're not the first guys that have asked, why doesn't my budgeting work like my T&M work completed template? Well, the programmers, when they programmed it up top, they didn't program it down below to behave in exactly the same manner as that.
There we go. Yeah, because they're,
Actually, do a new line type, go to the very bottom, please, and do line type 1. Oops, hit, yeah, click your little down arrow.
Nope.
Oops, you gotta go to the bottom, new line. Purchase order lines, I understand.
escape.
Hit refresh up top. Yes. Okay, now go to the very bottom and hit your down arrow. So this is a labor line. The problem is with the shell game here, it changes all the columns when you change the lines. So hit enter. So now, since this is a labor line type, 1 is my scope sequence, and then enter over to technician, grab yourself a technician off there. It's gonna make, since it's labor, you gotta have who done it. And then enter, oops, go to that labor code, hit F5 there for a second. Okay, so in this situation, you can put little labor cost type codes in here. We don't really need those for this situation because it's not going to affect anything we're going to do. We can hide that. Hit delete, get rid of that. Enter. Over here, when we get to the SM pay type, cost type is going to be 1 for labor. Now F4, this is what you're talking about. In that table, it needs to read, is it this, or this? And
well,
that.
it's almost like the description should say journeyman. And then over here it goes to 1, 2, or 3.
Well, that's where we said it could have, but since you're not really doing it by journeyman now, our tables aren't set up.
We are doing it by journeyman, not by craft. So it's, what I'm saying is we're not
It's by
journeyman
grade.
fitter, journeyman sheet metal, or what's,
Yeah, you got a rate template basically.
Yeah, but you're doing straight time, overtime, double time, but
Right.
we do not have craft and class in
Right.
your templates.
We just have pay type 1, 2, 3,
But the
John.
bottom line is, we don't, that pay type and all that criteria that's up here that's required for it isn't exactly the same criteria down under.
You got the technician.
We got
craft
the
class.
makings of it,
Yep.
and if they just tweak the code a little bit, they could get that thing restructured, but at this stage of the game, he's exactly where he is. Does that make sense? You know how he's using it. When he's in here doing a quote, we can put a little button and it can pop up that little thing and he can see it right there.
Would
Does
I,
that make sense?
okay, the pop-up and then he could see the labor rate?
Bingo. Does that make
So
sense?
it's all on screen.
You can put a little button on there and he
Because
can be
it's-
in there.
the
and it
whole,
pops
the
up.
whole,
Okay,
the
so-
whole, the whole where we want to be is when you figure something time and material, it becomes a lump sum quote, but if the customer goes, oh, it's, well, I'll do it time and material, you just would change. It's all estimated there. It could all go.
But yeah,
I mean, it just
And-
seems
and
like it just.
By the
didn't
way,
finish
it
it
would
all.
put us miles ahead if we know when we're generating a quote who our site is, and if the site is preferred, CenturyLink, CBRE, whatever their price book is.
Yeah.
Because
We have to look
based
at
on
the
site, we
updates.
don't know that right now.
Yeah.
If you tell me I'm gonna go do Honeywell, I'm gonna go change the backflow out at Honeywell, Honeywell as a site is to get CBRE pricing.
Okay, so do me a favor, undo that little stinker because I just want to show what that labor line looked like. Cancel
Yeah,
out
like
there.
you said, we could have a button that brings up.
So in this situation,
Right there.
if I was gonna use this,
There's my price and they could put it in.
and he wanted to use that, if it changed all the time, it wouldn't make sense to put a rate in here.
All of them that we have, and they could select them.
We have, what, 11 price books?
Yeah, and this isn't the, because it doesn't have all the criteria, does that make sense? So,
Rate template.
So this isn't a good screen.
yeah, well, if I'm gonna use the labor thing,
Not only that,
Look at that.
Dawn, but
put the cost rate of 0 in.
There's a lot of place to add.
Well, actually, get craft and class out of there because it really doesn't matter.
It's new.
Hit enter
That's crazy. We're like.
and put in 0 here, for instance.
They
Hit
make it hard.
save, cancel out of here. Let's go back to our little labor tab at the bottom of the quote. So in the quote,
That's something
Yep.
we gotta update.
all we're gonna probably do is, because it really doesn't matter what craft or class at this side of the game is, so
No,
you put in how many hours at, and then we'd have that button to pull that rate, enter, and hit save.
okay, so you're saying right here, you can give me a drop down or something that tells me that this site that I'm working on gets this labor rate.
It won't be right in that field, but it'll be
Somewhere.
maybe a button down below. Can we add
Yeah,
buttons?
we
to
can
that?
put a little custom button
Mhm.
that'll launch that template, and if he can't change it, he could have a read-only version of it. Does that make sense?
Just to look at it.
Well, he can look, but he can't touch, because we can give him a read-only version of the template thing, so he can't mess up your nice template.
Will he know what template to pull up?
Well, that's the point.
Yeah.
That's my point.
Mm-hmm.
If he's dealing with, if he's quoting Honeywell,
Go back to the info tab. It should
I go
pre-fill,
back, but I don't know where I am. Oh, there I am.
info tab.
I don't know how to go back because I don't know where I am.
Now, here's the problem, I guess, because see that flat price right there? If it's flat price, then the system doesn't show you at this point in time what the T&M template is.
Mhm.
Once you change that, click on that to time and materials.
Oh.
Now hit F4. That would have pre-filled,
Oops, I'm sorry.
leave it on time and materials, hit F4. It would have pre-filled from the service site. So if this service site was a, I don't know, whatever. These are the T&M rate templates that pre-fill from the service site,
But he now has to go pick that it's a preferred customer for this. Why doesn't it fill that?
because it's not on the service site.
Oh, because we are not connected yet. Well, I thought we had connected that. But anyway, okay, I'm with you, because when it is connected, and right now you don't know which of the clients are
It-
preferred or they're not talking to each other. So that would be in there like that.
then how come it doesn't do the labor cost right now?
Hit save. Okay, go to the labor tab. Because this table doesn't have all the criteria that rate template has. Like the pay type and that kind of stuff, it wasn't built to do it, unfortunately.
Yeah, so you
Well,
can
we're
apply it
at-
there, but it doesn't.
It doesn't do it.
It didn't do it, yeah.
I'm telling you, it doesn't do it.
I get it.
So the only thing you can
But
do
you
is,
have 4 at 141, how come it doesn't show labor?
I
there?
put in 4 at 141,
I know that, but why didn't it go through to there?
because we're not done.
Oh, yeah, go back to the info tab. Okay, so now, if it's time and, so hit derived on the budget. Now it's grabbing all that stuff. So it's grabbing 4 labor hours, there's cost totals, et cetera, so now,
Why is it showing labor?
Because I haven't put anything in here yet.
yeah, we didn't put anything. We started out a fixed price, and now it's thinking it's a total of 600 and estimated profit and stuff like this. But because there isn't cost associated on your budget, there's only So it's 4 times, let's see, go
4 times 150
go
is,
back to that labor. So that's the cost rate for T and M.
this is a cell.
No billing rate, total bill. So go back to the material, and there's that. Here's the 500. Go back to the equipment, and there's 4. So there's the cost right there.
That's the cell.
That's my
Billing.
jetter.
So that's a little jetter. She did 4 hours times.
But it says
150.
cost is the same as billing?
Well, the question is it T and M or is it fixed rate? If it's T and M, I gotta go back to my equipment tab on my billing table and set some rules up for this. Because right now, equipment doesn't have it. Go back to the info tab. And this is what I was saying today. Go to preferred, hit F5, and go to the equipment tab. See the markup is 0%? See advanced, we ain't got nothing? Guess why it ain't marking up my jetter?
No, but also you.
Because on
when
the
you-
preferred markup table, I got a 0 markup and I didn't say, what am I billing for a jetter?
But when we
for
went
all?
to the
And I put-
jetter, when we set the jetter up in the
It's in
EM2
the
spot,
equipment
it
module.
says 150 is our cell rate.
That's the cost.
That
what-
was our
that-
cell. That's what our cell rate is. Can we go
Now,
to what screen that is?
Then you go to the advanced tab right here. This is your billing. And
Where's this?
201, equipment company.
Yeah, no, where did we go to set that up? When we set it up to put that 150 bucks in there?
We went to the equipment
Go
module, to the
to
charge
200.
rate, it's the cost rate to the job and to the work order. So the equipment module does not hold billing rates. It holds the rate
Then
that
we
you're
wrote the
gonna
wrong-
cost to the job.
We wrote the
Remember
wrong thing in
billing
there.
rates, don't we have billing rates going to construction from the equipment module?
Charge rates to the job. What's it costing?
Module?
Well, we put the wrong thing in the equipment module then, just now.
No, equipment, it module holds how much am I charging the job from my equipment usage
Gene?
for using my equipment on
We've
the
had a
job.
few of these moments already. Our whole team has. So,
Where I'm like, we did the wrong thing.
yeah, we've already, I mean, Margaret's having to revamp some of the craft classes, just from what our interpretation was and what Dawn is guiding us through.
Yeah,
So
but that one
there-
we just did a minute ago.
Yeah, there's 2 steps forward and 1 step back in some
Yeah.
of this process because of the way we're all used to doing things in Maxwell and the way Vista functions. And honestly, there's some things that the functionality in here is not the way I would have preferred it to work, but it's the way it works. So now we're
Sure.
coming up with some workarounds.
And understanding the logic. Can we go to that screen though?
You'll never go to equipment or payroll for billing rates. You'll always go to the rate template for your billing rates. And in job billing, in the job cost module, you'll go to the job billing.
Yeah, but
T&M
construction
things.
jobs are having billing rates for equipment.
And that's in the T&M tables in the
That's
job
Yeah, they're
billing
coming through a
module in the
different
job cost.
table.
Equipment
It doesn't
master.
come from the equipment master module. Is that, maybe, can you explain that to John and Jean? Because that was helpful, I think. So it kind of shows where the things are feeding from and how it touches
Yeah.
out from the different modules.
So the equipment module, what we just did there is in the equipment module, we integrated the cost to the service module. So this was more of our equipment kind of thing. So let me put payroll in here too, because it's in this whole thing. Payroll will update that. Payroll will also update the job. My key subsidiary ledger is for costing, and I'm talking costing because
Just cost.
nothing has to do with revenue. Payroll's a costing module, equipment's a costing module, AP is a costing module. That will send costs. The revenue end of it is totally in those tables that you set up today, those rate templates. They 100% take costs and mark those up and turn costs into revenue using those markup tables. The only place you will go to make sure that your T&M markups are working good is in those T&M rate tables. The costs will funnel through there, So what you just did in equipment is said, and I had to kind of interpret but we didn't go through it, that maybe the cost for that jetter is $100 an hour, but that's the cost. The billing is $150 an hour.
This just goes back to making me take the jetter out of equipment module.
Well, I think it should just be in the standard items, and then, because it's a flat fee.
That's more straightforward for you guys. The equipment module has a lot of bells and whistles in it, man. I mean, but if we need to depreciate or, I think we even took that out because we're doing that separately. So I mean, what were the other benefits that we got out of the equipment module for a jetter for service?
Oh,
Yeah,
we're depreciating.
we are going to use the depreciation piece in this stuff.
Oh, we are?
Yes,
Then we have to keep
What do you mean we're gonna depreciate it out?
right now, we're not using the depreciation function in
Mhm.
Maxwell, but we are going to utilize the functionality in Vista.
Yeah, but depreciation's its own thing, billings is a completely separate thing. So when we buy a truck and we depreciate $1,000 a month, I'm getting depreciation down here regardless I'm not billing for the truck every hour.
So
I know, but if the item's not in equipment
you're not
module,
relieving it.
then you can't relieve the bucket.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, there was a way to do it, but it's a separate GL thing and everything. It's not doing it per the piece of equipment itself, so.
Yeah, but so you guys could still depreciate the jetter into whatever GL that goes to do, but that's on the billing side.
Right, and
We're
I
doing it the
understand
other
what he's
module.
saying. He's almost saying, like, you can do whatever you want over here with your jetter and depreciate it and track it and do whatever, but can I still have the jetter on my standard item list to pick from?
Sure can.
Instead of picking it from the equipment master table, can I pick it from my standard item list? And it sounds like you can.
Yes, and we would
But
put a
then would we
cost
still
type
be
for the
costing the
equipment on
job?
it, so it would be grouped on invoices with equipment.
But if I'm already paying for the depreciation, am I costing the job? Or am I just taking it at depreciation? I don't want to take it both.
Mhm. You don't want to double up. I don't know, that's on. I mean.
So right now, the
especially
jobs
if
are
it's
getting it from job cost from the equipment module.
Mhm.
We're not getting it from depreciation.
Mhm.
But if you're buying if I have the item like a truck that I'm depreciating in there, what it means is the jetter is would have to be bought and depreciated to 01 and costed
For
through the
construction.
equipment module to 02. Am I right?
You lost me.
Okay,
Again,
so what I'm saying is right now, if we just went and bought a jetter into service and we were depreciating it.
Okay,
So right now, the equipment module to a construction job is not buying that and taking a depreciation. It's going into the equipment module of the master company. It's
right,
trying
it
to
will,
cost.
it
not
will
that far
probably be
different
purchased
what
to
your
the
towns are
corporate,
doing right
now.
0, and then whenever
Isn't that-
This
the
is what
allocations
goes
are
in
done,
that
they'll be done by
study.
division or whatever.
So that's what I'm saying. So
So
I
I can
can't
explain
take
it.
the depreciation and buy
I
it
can do the exact same
into
work
the
around what I'm
P&L
doing right now.
and take a
All day
hit
long.
from the equipment
So really
module.
what you have to do
I'm
to
double
build a
costing
quote
myself.
in the
Right, I see
system.
what you're saying.
So all I'm saying is
System
it
isn't
either,
Look to those
there's no
rate
depreciation in
templates to mark
service
up
for the
your
jetter
quote.
and it's in corporate and you get a
I
cost.
need
Or
to
if we
have-
buy something
we'll have
specifically
it.
in service and we're
One
gonna
thing I need to
depreciate
have
it,
is I
it
need
just
to
goes
be
into
able to see
standard
what my
rates and
charge is supposed to be.
what we built
Then
for
if
it.
I have
We
to
get
pay
no
my
cost, we
labor
look like
line,
we make more margin,
and
but we got cost over
I
here
need
on the
someplace to show my
depreciation.
As long as we set up that one center
127
item.
for this customer,
Pardon?
141
As long as we set up the center items, I thought that was a good idea to do
that
that too, as
reference
long as we
point
get the full
on the
functionality.
quote. That gets me
So-
some.
Stacy, ultimately what Stacy wanted to do too, and I get
That
it,
will help me.
if you bought a $40,000 jetter,
Template you're using.
how
just
long,
So you can
and
look at your.
and what
I don't-
increments
I
is
can go
coming
do
in,
that.
what's my payback? Oh, in
But I
3
need
years,
you guys
we've
to
actually
know
paid
when
for the
it's
jetter and we've got $20,000 extra and we're already building up equity to buy another jetter.
So as long as we get that.
But I don't know how, I don't know, can you look,
So that gets
Chris,
me
can
in
you
that,
actually see
but I
how
really,
on a specific
that
item
was
the
what
jetter,
that
if we
and the
relieved it or
purchase
over relieved it based on the
parts
what
for
we
my
cost
maintenance.
related to that?
I know I'm not getting that either. And
No?
that
I
was
can
something
tell you
else I
if
wanted, those are
if the
things that we
depreciation
wanted.
I don't know, but we can't
So
get you that, so I don't
value
know
is
that that
zero or
was
not.
something you couldn't
But you
get.
can't tell how much we costed our jobs
my
based on.
When we do our
understanding is-
preventive maintenance,
So
and
it's
you
a
get
stupid
a
invisible.
I've always
outlets
wanted to get
by
that
site,
information
by
from
piece of
the
equipment,
plotter
and I
over there.
can come up with one.
To what?
Our plotter,
you
same
use the vendor
distance,
that
it's
you were
a piece of
buying
equipment
that
where we,
for.
while we charge the jobs.
We can.
See, to me, that's what she,
potentially
but
maybe get
when
you
she
a
costs that,
purchase
it's
order
supposed to go off to burden,
for
to cover
that.
burden and
That
all
would be
that.
up to
This
you.
is why I'm going, if you can't do it like this, then it's just,
Then I can be happy.
then I don't get it. We're hoping we're.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah,
and we're trying to
Each animal,
develop
we have
as
to
we
just dig into
grow,
it and
and
say,
have
what do you need?
larger,
What do you do? How do
develop
it work?
systems that are more
How do you
complex
try
and
to do it? How
track
does
some
the
of these
system do
items.
it?
And I
Is
don't-
that
We used to
improvement,
have
yes or
some
no?
reporting ability
that's
in
why you gotta look at
Maxwell
everything.
Yeah.
on the
I can't
jetters.
reprogram
and
how
I
that
know on the
darn
plotter,
bottom
because
works,
like
'cause
it broke.
works
I
on
mean,
the top.
like their
If that
ability to
works, but when you
report
go to
on
the
that
bottom,
kind of
it
like
doesn't
broke.
But it used to be when Stacy, so if you look at the jetter, how much of that have I actually paid for
Yes,
revenue for?
Yes,
bottom
but they
stuff.
had
They put it on
issues
top,
with that
which is why my
function, and they
estimate
did not
is
repair it,
there.
and then they told us they would not,
When
they weren't going
can we
to.
have
That's
that?
it.
They
So
weren't
you
gonna
know,
patch
to me,
it.
you know what?
Yeah.
Gotta go to the top.
Right now,
And
I'm
here's
no ability
right,
to
here's
go
another
to
one,
Stacy,
another
I need
customer
another
with that.
jetter.
So,
Because I can't
Let
show
me,
I
uh,
service and I.
doubled
we
it
never
in 4
finished,
years.
and I know
paying
that.
for it. I
Well,
mean,
and there's some kind
But
of
can I-
basic stuff that you
can
can
I
pull
close
on it,
this?
but
Sure.
it's
What part
really,
is
it's
this?
That's our
been
customer.
not handled consistently over the years, so it's really kind of
Well, so
bogus
in here, we want to
information.
get that functionality going.
Yeah.
So
right?
tomorrow
Well,
when we get there,
so, like
first
the
thing
plotter,
we'll
you got
recap
your-
this.
Unless-
you have
print out the
maintenance that you have to
Unless
follow on
corporate
the
is
system.
buying a tool
And
house
then
and
we'll
they're
watch
managing
agreements.
one bucket
Kind of
and they're
work
just
on
doing it
this.
corporate web by web.
Whether it's
It's
T&M
cost out and they
This
know
is
our
an
profit
objective
centers
because
from
we
the
did
tool
have
modules
this
making
10
money.
that was-
But-
When we were playing.
Yeah, and we can fix that
At Kent
tomorrow
Street,
morning.
when we
Kind of
bought
go
a jetter,
through.
it just became
You
like
gotta
a
know
truck
this.
and I had a
You want
depreciation
to
line item that was jetter. I was paying
Most
for
of
it
the
every
time,
month, right?
most of the
You
time.
can't
But
get
when
it.
I charged for the customer for it, it all looked like 100% profit, so those jobs look really fat.
Then,
But down here, I knew I was paying for
so
it.
if this was fixed.
So I could almost tell by a margin of a job,
then
going,
he
oh, that
comes
must be
over
a jetting
here.
job, because I could look at it. 'Cause you we're charging them 4 hours and 150
Yeah.
bucks with no cost.
Can I just
but-
cancel it?
If I was paying
Start over?
for $40,000 over 5 years,
Yeah,
and
you'd
it
have to
cost
start
me
over from the
$1,000
very,
a
very,
month,
very beginning.
I knew
What you
all
trying
I
to
had to do
cancel.
is revenue over $1,000 a month. to
All of
pay
these
for that.
items, we can
And then
delete
we
all of these
had
items. out
For
of
your
the
house,
account
And we were
start
making, I mean,
without
that water was
canceling the whole
$100,000.
Okay.
What's that?
That water was
So, but let's do that
$100,000.
tomorrow when we
Oh,
get there.
okay.
We'll
I
have-
thought there was a code that you entered
Start
in
over
for
from the
costs.
beginning, go through it.
Can
Won't
you,
take us
so then you
long
can
because
see all the
we've already
costing
covered
you've
it for
done.
the first time. And then
It
we'll
would
go
tell you
ahead
whether you
and,
paid for it.
get into our,
Yeah, I could do that manually, but it'd be great if it was all
Our
consolidated in the system.
Agreements,
and
yeah.
I do it
Yeah.
monthly, you
So
know,
if I want to
send it off to
correct
accounting,
that
but
spelling of that
yeah, I mean,
customer's
I
name
could
and
maybe
so
do a
forth,
whole
can I do
report.
that here?
yeah, hit F5.
plotter, but I don't know.
What was
It'd
his
be
name?
cool though,
It just doesn't
to
have
be
a
able to
name.
do that, definitely. That'd be
Yeah.
really neat.
Save,
Thank you for doing that.
cancel. Now take it out of there. The next time you grab that, you'd have to grab somebody else. There you go. And then do the same thing over there.
You're gonna have to show me tomorrow how to, put this lookup table on this account manager. I'm struggling with it. I added the custom UD field there, but
Okay.
on SM customers,
Yeah, we'll do a little lookup and I'll show you how those little stinkers are tricky.
Do you think we made any progress today?
Oh yeah, we got about 10 or 12 items checked off our list and, you know,
I think we
I
did
think
good.
you know a lot more than you did when you walked in the door.
Well,
I would think. And we got a lot of homework done, so that was huge. We're to the point where I can start testing quotes and testing T&M and doing stuff. I mean, when we walked in the door today, didn't even have the building blocks to start pushing data through and testing the system. Now I've got pretty much set up in all the little areas where I can test work orders and see how they're working. and
I
how to
just
work
think
on
there's a
everything.
lot of work on the quote thing, because you don't have the template to, you know,
I
that.
don't, no, Don and I were talking, John, I think